Welcome to This Is. Samsung are on the cusp of releasing their brand new Galaxy S21 lineup of phones, the previous flagship. However, this year, well, okay, there have been a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors, as usual when it comes to new Samsung launches. And there are a few things that we need to talk about because I don't want to say disappointed because we haven't seen it yet, but there are some things that are very concerning about this phone to me.
We've seen leaks for months at this point, and the design looks cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's get the positives out of the way first.
Let's get the positives before we clickbait you with our horrible news that's coming in 7 minutes of your attention. So the design, I will agree, looks nice. The
I
color
think it's
scheme,
the best it's looked in maybe ever.
Yeah.
Me personally, as far as the S line.
The camera bump actually looks like it is design and not just something that they slapped on.
Yeah.
They now will apparently have flat fronts as opposed to curved, which I'm a big fan of. Now, one thing that I'm a little bit on the fence about is the materials. So supposedly, at least the base model at Galaxy S21 will be plastic back instead of glass. Now, I will say I'm not totally against this. I mean, usually you think plastic and cheap. However, what they've done with stuff like the Note 20 and the Galaxy, the FE, was fine. It actually feels different, and you're not going to crack it.
It feels different, yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is if you drop it, you're not going to crack the back of it. I mean,
or it will be much harder to crack plastic compared.
Right.
Yeah.
The front of it's still glass, and glass breaks, but
yeah. But I mean, I don't want a plastic screen. Please don't do that. Okay. Design, fine.
And then with design, I think that's really where the positives end.
No. There's more than that.
What?
There's more than that.
What is the positive?
So, according to the rumors, we have 3 models of the S21, just like last year.
Okay.
So the standard S21, the S21 Plus, and the S21 Ultra, all of which seem to be roughly the same sort of like form factor and size. So unfortunately, we're not getting any kind of like S21 Mini, most likely, compared to something like the iPhone. Which, look, if you remember,
I think that's bad.
If you remember the S10e. The S10e was something that Samsung were kind of ahead of the game on, but evidently it must have not have sold very well because they stopped making it, and instead they replaced their sort of $700 flagship range with the FE. So a lot of things look very similar. Cameras are also supposedly similar. Now this is where there's a little bit more
similar, but it is a step backwards.
Sort of. So the camera modules on the S21 and the S21 Plus seem to be very similar. There's a time of flight sensor that may be missing. That was on the Plus.
Again, this is all rumors.
Yeah.
We'll know more next week when they talk about it. But it's so reportedly the time of flight sensor that was on the S20 is no longer on the S21, and the main telephoto shooter is
slightly different, but not necessarily worse, just different as far as I know.
No, it's a slightly smaller sensor.
Oh, is it?
So you are gonna lose. So the selfie camera and the telephoto, the ultra wide, those are supposedly identical. Yeah. However, the telephoto one is a very slightly smaller sensor size, which means you're gonna lose some depth of field. You're gonna lose some low light performance. It's probably not gonna be super noticeable. It's one thing to have like a slightly wider open aperture or a slightly sharper lens, but having the bigger sensor I think is
always good.
It goes a long way.
Yeah. It's hard to say, and there are certainly some bigger changes in store for the S21 Ultra. That's a little bit of a different subject because the Ultra actually doesn't actually have as many of the compromises as the base S21 and the S21 Plus. So here's where things take a turn for the worse, a turn for the nefarious, some might say. So in some ways, the S21 is a downgrade. First and foremost, what everyone is upset about right now is the screen. Now, Samsung have traditionally made excellent quality screens. They make screens for many iPhones. Obviously, the OLEDs are top-notch, right? However, this is poised to be the first Samsung S-Line flagship since I think like 2015-ish that does not have a 1440p display. That is a very odd sentence. This would be a downgrade in some ways compared to a 2015 Galaxy S6?
We watched Dave Duty's video.
Yes, Dave did an excellent video on this.
Yes,
you should absolutely go check that out.
He thinks that Samsung is somewhat intentionally sidelining the S line to make room for the Note, or not the Note.
No, not the Note. The Z Flip.
The Z Flip, the Z Fold. I have a different theory.
Yes, go ahead.
Which is my theory is much more nefarious.
Okay, that's not out nefarious Dave here. Go ahead.
And I think and this is I'm fully aware that I'm gonna come off as super Apple fanboy right now.
Ooh,
but
this is a good start. I like where this is going.
I'm ready for the comments on this. But I fully think that right now Samsung, with the knowledge that if there's an Android user, they're probably not gonna go to Apple.
Sure, that seems like a relatively safe assumption.
They're taking that knowledge and pushing the limits of what they can get away with, and they're becoming the new Apple. So imagine if Apple did this. Yeah. Imagine if they said, okay, we're gonna take the processor and we're gonna give you a weaker processor, or we're gonna give you a weaker camera.
Imagine that we go, the iPhone 14 has an iPhone 11 screen, right? Now, to be fair, there are some caveats to this thing. So the rumor is currently stating that the standard S21 and the S21 Plus will have a 1080p 120Hz OLED. Now, to be fair, I guarantee you Samsung and their giant R&D department have all the data that most people probably run their phones at 1080p 60 and never even think about it, right?
For context, because like you say, no one ever thinks about it. As much as they have those 1440p phones, they do not ship with 1440p high refresh rate enabled.
So one of the main downsides of the S20, it incorporates 120 hertz displays, but you can't run it at the full resolution. You have to pick either 1440p at 60 or 1080p at 120. Personally, I would always go 1080p 120, but that was a weird thing that they left out last year. And instead of fixing it and giving you 1440p at 120, something like OnePlus has been able to do very easily, instead they go, hey, guess what? No, this screen is now going to be lower resolution. So here's the thing. So right now, we do not know what these will cost.
No.
If they are roughly in the same ballpark of about $1,000 for the S21 and up from there, that would be an obscene amount of money for a phone that has a 1080p 60. Now, yes, I know that the iPhones have 1080p, or actually slightly like 1200p 60 hertz displays.
So it does have 120 and 60 hertz, but I guarantee you, it's going to be at 60.
But you can flip it on. Supposedly, it will be $1,000. Here's where I have a problem.
1050.
We'll see.
So if that leak is true, it's $50 more.
I'm gonna assume it's gonna be the same. The materials, up to you. I would say plastic to glass, not a huge downgrade, but potentially a slightly less complete package on the camera side with the time of flight sensor. But most importantly, they're cutting back on the screen. Now look, did I use 1440p before? Not really, but I think that's almost besides the point. If you're charging the same, if not more, for a phone and you were removing features, like, I mean, obviously we've had this kind of conversation with like, okay, we lose the headphone jack because we need more space for battery or whatever. We lose like the charger because it's more environmentally friendly or more friendly to our profits. But to literally downgrade the resolution of your screen that you've had for years now, I get, like, it's a principle thing for me. I'm fine running it at 1080p 120. Like, that's okay, right? My Z Flip has a 1080p screen, but I never had a 1440 and you removed it and you're charging me the same, if not more. That's where I get really upset with what they're doing. Of course, leaks, rumors, grain of salt alert, etc.
All of this won't matter when they come out to, next week and they say it's actually a 4K. A 4K, 240 hertz screen for $500.
Yeah. And to be fair,
we'll eat our words then.
A lot of this doesn't apply to the S21 Ultra, which supposedly does have 1440p and likely 120, although it's not clear if you can do both of those at the same time. The Ultra does seem like it sort of steps away from this. I'm talking about the S21 and the S21 Plus. But I do think Dave has a point. You really should check out his video. He did a great job of sort of articulating this. I think Samsung are really focusing on their foldable market because think about it, right? Samsung are in a very crowded market, right? A lot of companies make excellent Android phones. And before, Samsung was kind of the default because they had the sort of best all-around phones. I would still argue in a lot of cases, Samsung do make kind of some of the most well-rounded Android devices, but they don't have a clear lead. And when you look at what they have been able to do successfully, they've been able to push up the price of their very high-end phones, not by giving you flagships and ultras and everything, but by selling the Z Flip, by selling the Z Fold, by selling these foldable phones, which Samsung are legitimately years ahead of anyone else in the market for. And I guess my main thought here is that we're, again, very close to the launch, so we will know all the information we need about the S21 very shortly, right? What I'm seeing right now makes me not confident that this is going to be a killer phone, because last year the S20 was great, right? Typically the S line of phones are some of the easiest to recommend. They have long lifespans, they have the brand new processors, like they have everything you really want, and usually they are discounted pretty decently, right? But the S21 in a lot of ways seems like it's a downgrade, and I don't know about that. I just don't know.
I'll be honest, I'm fine if it was a downgrade if they go ahead and downgrade the price.
You can't remove features and charge more and have no real justification for what you're doing. Like, why did you not at least give me a 1440p display when you shipped it on so many devices for so many years? Like, just why do you gotta remove that if they lower the price? Now, all of this is with a huge caveat.
Yeah.
If they lower the price to be closer to be competitive with the iPhone 12,
if they come back and say this is $700, every one of my arguments, I'm fine.
This is assuming it's 1,000.
We have rumored leaks, which is what we're basing our anger on right now.
Like the rest of the internet.
Yeah. So like, again, if they lower the price to be competitive with an iPhone, $700-800, great. I'm fine. Honestly, I'm fine with it. Because the trade-offs are minimal enough for me to, if it's $200-300 for a slightly lower resolution screen, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna have the same price or even slightly higher, if the rumors are true, that's messed up, because we didn't even talk about its lower RAM.
Oh yeah, potentially. So it looks like it may have 8 gigs of RAM.
8 gigs of RAM versus 12.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you need more than 8.
That's another weird thing for them to remove.
If it's there and then it's not there anymore, that's weird. Like, it's weird, and why? Like, again, why is the price not different? So I know that we're kind of ranting about stuff that we don't fully know, but with how detailed these leaks have been, we can take this with a somewhat educated guess.
I'm very curious. What do you think about the Galaxy S21 this year? And what do you think about Matt's horrible slander of your impeccable technological knowledge? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to ring-a-ding the ding-a-ling bell. Subscribe to This Is for more angry rants and mildly coherent sentences. Until next time, hopefully we have an update when Samsung actually releases this stuff and it's all awesome and great, right?